Hey guys, I have a confession to make. Look at that, this ripped. I hate plastic comic book bags. Look how cloudy that is. I don't know, there's just something ugly and unpleasant about them, and my most local, closest by comic book shop has everything in bags. All the new comics, the old comics, of course the old comics. They don't bag and board very much. But for a long time, well, I've always hated bags, I guess. I hate them less now than I used to. What I do like is boards. I like keeping the comic books unbent with the boards. I don't really trust the bags. I don't really believe that they are the best way to store comics. I don't really know. I just have a gut sort of reaction against them sometimes. And one thing is, there are comic books, now granted, these are mostly ones I bought in stores that were in the bags. I take them out of the bag and they smell really bad. Not a nice old comic book smell, but a kind of bad one. And I wonder if the bag serves as kind of a petri dish or whatever that actually makes the comic books rot more. Of all my Commandy comics, you know, there's some that I bought in recent years at comic book stores. There's some I bought a long time ago and just sort of kept in a drawer somewhere, not in bags. And those ones in the drawer smell the best. They're in fine shape. You know, so maybe the best way to keep comics is not wrapped in bags, but just in some cool shaded place where they'll never get ruffled and stuff. Of course, when I didn't use comic bags, I didn't take that good care of the comics. I would pile them in boxes and stuff. What I do like, I love Mylar. I love the Mylar bags. Then your comics look really nice. I kind of, since they're archival, you know, used by the Library of Congress, I assume my comic books will never smell bad. There's a nice backing board. But even, I mean, I think I'd be pretty happy just keeping all my comics in bags and boards in Mylar. But even then, there's a little split feeling there because you stick them in bags and then you stick them in boxes and they're not accessible. So there's a part of me, a bad collector part, that wants to just have a room filled with piles of comic books everywhere that are kind of open and I can just flip through the stacks real easily. The whole, and I don't mean this negatively, the whole anal thing that has developed up as a culture around comics with the bagging and the boarding and the boxing, I don't think that existed when I first went to comic book stores. So it's something that grew up around me as I was interested in comic books. And I, particularly since I had some experiences fairly early on where I discovered comic books that I thought were going to be really valuable, were in 25-cent bins a few years later. I just felt bitter about all the plastic bags, especially on the new comic books and everything. It was a kind of a symbol to me of how comic book stores were selling this fake idea of the collectability of comics. So don't take me wrong. I do think you should take good care of your comics. You probably should bag and board them, ideally in Mylar. And at least in Mylar they look beautiful. But I just have this mixed feeling and this love-hate, or mostly hate, relationship with plastic. For a long time, when I thought of myself as only a reader and not a collector, at my local comic book store, I would go in, I would buy the comics, and then I would take them out of the bags and give the bags back to the comic book store. When the first comic book store I ever went to was in Manhattan. I think I went there, I want to guess and say 75. I don't know. I think it was called Super Snipe. It was on the Upper West Side, I believe, and it was a tiny little square room of a store. There might have been a back area that I wasn't aware of. I mean, I was just a kid. I mean, I walked in there and I was utterly shocked. I was visiting New York, visiting my grandmother in New York, and I was utterly shocked to have a room full of comics because I was only used to the spinner racks and all kinds of, treasures to me, which were probably just recent comics that you couldn't normally get, or magazines like the Comic Book Reader or something like that, and other fanzines and stuff. I don't remember plastic bags at that store. And at the second comic book store that I remember going to a lot, which was when I was in college, which was in upstate New York, and there was a little comic book store kind of in an upstairs room above other stores. And I don't remember all the back issues being in plastic bags yet. So I don't know when but plastic bags existed at that point because I know that I put a bunch of comic books I thought at the time were going to be valuable, X-Men and Daredevil and the New Teen Titans. I wrapped them up in bags, often like 3 or 4 to a bag, and sometimes in these large bags. So I must have got bags at my store. I was mostly buying new comics then, so maybe I wasn't paying a lot of attention to the old comics. But I seem to remember for a long time comic books not coming in bags. So I don't know when the proliferation of bags came in, or maybe serious collectors were using bags for a long time and I was just not aware of it because I was a kid. But because I didn't grow up with it, I sort of resent the bags. They feel like they take away some of the fun of comics, even though, especially for holding them together with a board, they're very important. You can't just tape your comic book onto a board. And tape is my huge enemy. I have hurt several comic books that I did not want, that I would be very sad about hurting. I hurt several comic books with tape, so I just don't use tape. I tuck them in. And so yeah, I wonder if I'm the only one who feels like that. Most of you guys are natural collectors, or people who just started buying comics when that was a given part of it. But a friend of mine, who is the son of a very good friend of mine, who's 10 years old, the son is, I gave him 6 Marvel Tales, having the first 6 Steve Ditko Spider-Mans in it. And it came in these ratty, kind of older, just scuffed looking bags. So I put them in new bags and I put them with boards and I gave them to this 10-year-old, and then he took the Spider-Mans all off to the park while we were going with a bunch of kids to play at the park, and he sat around reading them. But he was trying to carry these comics and they were all slipping out from each other, and I felt kind of, I had put them in the bags and the boards because I wanted him to feel they were special, and I was hoping he would take better care of them. But I felt guilty at the same time. I'd introduced to him this feeling about his comic books that maybe was the wrong feeling. I don't know. With him trying to carry them in the park and they were sliding around, and maybe now he'll feel guilty if something bad does happen to them. And of course these Marvel Tales reprints aren't of much value. Although hopefully of a lot of value to him, because he wanted to start reading Spider-Man from the very, very beginning. And he's just starting to become a decent reader, so these are like the first things he's reading, amongst the first things he's reading to himself. And this kid is actually, this is totally not to do with bags, but his big adventures in reading to himself finally, because he was struggling as a reader, dyslexia, as many boys have, has been with comic books. First a graphic novel of the Secret Wars, and now these Spider-Mans. So it's very exciting to see comic books really do their stuff. So anyway, I wonder if anyone out there has some deeper knowledge about the best care of comics. Because I do wonder if the bags can seal in a moldy situation and make it worse. And yeah, I wonder if somewhere there's a way to kind of rack your comics. If you had a really nice comics, to rack them without wrapping them in plastic. What is the plastic keeping out? I don't think it's protecting you from the sun. So it's protecting you from fingerprints and from pages getting folded and stuff. Of course, it's holding the board to the bag. There's a cool comic book store that's too far for me to go to more than every few months, but in Vancouver, Washington, called I Like Comic Books, or I Love Comic Books. I think I Like Comic Books. They have all of their back issues are bagged and boarded, and all of their new issues are bagged and boarded. And it's really nice to know they're all boarded, and so the chances of them getting handled poorly, if you're going to do it, board them too, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's the only store in my area that bags and boards every single thing. On the other hand, especially with the new comics on a rack, although they're then all being kept in good shape, it takes away the interactivity. You can't go up and flip through and get your imagination captured by the art and then decide to buy that issue. They say at my comic book store you can take anything out of the bag and then put it back in. But I'm so afraid of damaging things because I'm so klutzy with the tape that I only very rarely do that. So that's it. That's my confession. I don't like plastic bags. And sometimes it's just, I don't know. Life is full of so many plastic bags of all sorts, not just comic book bags, and plastic wrapping around everything. And part of me wants to escape all that. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.